one theme I think is useful as part of any narrative, well, most narratives. If you want people to listen to it, you got to loosen up a little bit. You got to have some fun. You got to surprise people. You got to play a little bit. So I'm going to demonstrate some of that for you. And I'm going to give you some tools that I want you all to take home and apply them in your own work. Apply them at your own family dinner table also. But you'll see, these tools are just narrative tools. So objectives here. First, I'm going to define it really briefly because no one's really defined it that much. Ron Lee did a pretty good job. I think he broached it well. But then I want to give you my big thesis, which is that the social contract is inherently founded on demographic trends that we have seen before and reacted to. And so we're still reacting to the old trends, not the new trends. And the big question is, how much have the demographic trends changed? And how do they feed into a new social contract? And at the end here, I'll come back to housing as one example of this. But I think it's broadly useful for labor force discussion, immigration policy, any number of things. They're all feeding off the same population base. So it's really a timeless concept. I mean timeless. I mean it goes back to like the 16th century, moral philosophy. So I'm going to talk to you about Rousseau and the social contract. No, I'm not. But what it does do is it speaks more generally to trade-offs between individual freedom and government protection. And it's a consensual arrangement that is agreed upon in a democracy. And that is, it's not really agreed upon. There's like different subsets of the population that might agree, and sometimes the majority might agree. And the different narratives that we're floating out there are actually narratives about social contract. No one calls it that. It's not an agreement that you sign. It's just implicit. It's an implicit agreement, and so it's a set of expectations and interpretations and implications for how we should cooperate together. Cooperation is a key thing, and I'll show you the definition I like is this one right here. Well, first off, this is my actual definition. I'm gonna close my talk on this one also. I think we're all connected. And rather than say that, I graph it, I diagram it. Guess what? The truth of demographers is unsurpassed by any economist or any geographer or anybody else, is that we know that in 10 years' time, everybody in this room is going to be 10 years older. And there they go. They rotate around the roles. You hope you're going to be 10 years older. We rotate around a cycle of roles. It's in every society on the planet. And so it's something we could agree upon, I hope, about that. I've colored it in a little bit about what you get with young adults. I've written a lot about millennials. They're the most supremely important group right now because they're in the key age where they do everything. The new workers, the new parents, the new taxpayers, the new voters, the new home buyers, they do everything. And we better treat them right or we're all going to suffer. Young adults turn into mature adults. That's when they're in prime working age. They offer really strong support for children and seniors. And then the working age people who've given all that money, they advance to their own reward, both living off of the public pensions, but also their own, as Ron Lee showed, off their own investments, assets that they gain in the end. And healthcare is the big one. I mean, wow, those charts we saw earlier, but the change between 1960 and 1985. Unbelievable. And healthcare is the big driver of that. So we're all tied together here, and we take turns rotating through the roles. So here's the definition I like of social contract. It's a single quote, and I broke it down into 4 parts. It's the shared social understandings, and that's the most important part. The shared social understandings that support cooperation among self-interested people who possess unequal resources. And that says it all. It's a beautiful quote. A sociologist named Beth Rubin came up with that. And just that definition. I'm going to take that shared social understandings and I'm going to deconstruct it into being how you react to demographic trends. That's what we're going to focus on a lot. So that's the key contribution proposed here. Our success depends on the shared social understanding so essential to cooperation, which we're not getting a lot of right now, cooperation and prosperity. So the question is, how much is the shared understanding still based on the old demographics, and what do the demographics have changed? Now, we all know they've changed, but what does it mean, how they've changed? And that's the part where a little humor comes in. I'm going to dramatize it for you, because they have changed, yes. But what does it mean? So it's a new reality for California. And I think the demographics provide a factual basis so we can talk about these other sensitive issues like sharing tax dollars, cooperation. That's difficult. But at least let's begin about let's agree on what's been happening, what's changing. And so it's just, the new social understanding is just beginning to be formed. It really hasn't been articulated very well. So big questions to answer. What are the major trends that have changed? And how do new demographics lead to new problem definitions? I'll try to demonstrate that for you. How do new demographic trends support a new social contract? I haven't got that figured out yet. That's why I want you to all take this home and work on it. It's a group activity here. How might life cycle sharing provide a guide to growing a stronger California? We'll see if we can get some progress there. So first, I'm going to give you the old outlook, and I don't know when does this date from? Circa 1990 to 2006, sort of pre-Great Recession. You know, restrictions are wanted on runaway growth, too much growth, too many babies. They're also expensive to educate. Not enough seniors with institutional knowledge. Too many new graduates, not enough jobs. Too many immigrants from abroad or from Iowa. You know, from outsiders. And at this rate, we'll all be immigrants soon. That's what people say. It seems that way sometimes if it's growing rapidly. We really don't want any more children or young adults. And now there's a quote, California exodus, unquote. Is everyone leaving? Why? No one wants to live here anymore. Are you kidding me? All right, we're going to address all that real quick here. I get 26 minutes, right? Okay, so now I should acknowledge my Alicia Kasusi, who helped me work this out. How do I show this in 26 minutes? How do I zip along here? So here's the old outlook, but now we're going to go and get the new outlook. What is this? On restrictions wanted on runaway growth. Here I've stolen data from Walter Schwarm. Get it from the expert mouth. Get it from the Department of Finance. And the Demographic Research Unit is in the Department of Finance because that's how damn important demographics are. And really, it's critical for all our tax base and our spending. Okay, so here it goes. There's a sharp slowdown. Everybody knows that. And this actually predates Walter. I'm going to use some 2000 data here. There was a census trend, and then there was an early 2000 projection that built off that, and it found that trend was going to just keep going, and it's going to break through the ceiling, just keep going. And then after the Great Recession, there was some more rethinking, and the newer projections in 2013 say, well, it's still growing, but it's a little bit lower than before. And then I have a whole series of dates. So I'm just going to give you one more date. I have 2023. There's a new one. A new set came out yesterday, and I didn't have time to work it in here, but it doesn't change it a whole lot. So you want to see the newest projections? Okay, here they are. Basically, we crawl along with almost zero growth. And I think Walter said it might be even just a touch lower in the newest ones. But here's the question I have for you. What year does California reach 50 million population? The old expectation back in 2000 was 2036. Now, that's a lot of roads we got to build. That's a lot of houses we have to build. That's a lot of, we can't do, how are we going to do that? And the newer projections said, well, actually maybe 2051. So you have more time. And I know you want to know what's it now. Well, it's like never. And the 41.2 million has actually been superseded by a newer estimate that's more like 40 million, 0.5 or something. But holy cow. I mean, if it doesn't say it all, I mean, that it is really slowed down. So that's just the first thing. But we're still have restrictions in place to beat away
runaway growth, and a lot of the housing development controls they're fighting against growth from the past, not dealing with the future or the present. So next one is too many babies, also expensive to educate. Now, is that true? Well, the new now we're actually there's a lot of talk about a downturn in fertility, that like we have a shortage of babies or something. Well, what does that mean? That if you go from too many babies to a shortage? Well, can you hear the voices groaning from the past? Growth is overwhelming us. Ah, children are too numerous. Children are a burden on the taxpayers. The other people's kids, we really just can't afford it. I've heard that way in the past, but not so much anymore, I don't think. Here's the actual data, number of births. I got this from the Department of Finance. And it peaked in 1990, it turns out. Well, but everybody, I'm urban planner too. So I know that every citizen group, every meeting, someone always says, well, at this rate, pretty soon, and they extrapolate. Everybody does that. Well, this is my extrapolation of what was in people's heads. They thought, we really are drowning in babies here. We can't afford this. And actually, what happened, the birth never approached that level again. It just trended downward. There was projections that were done after the Great Recession that, well, maybe it's going to rebound now. Maybe it's going to rebound here. Well, okay, well, not there. Okay, how about here? We're going to rebound here. And the most recent is it's like that a little bit. And I don't know, I have to look closely at Walter's newest data, but it's something like still down really low. So that's just a graph. And you see people make mistakes and they revise their thinking. Does the public revise their thinking, or are they stuck with old attitudes from the past? We don't know that, but we do know it's been a total reversal in outlook. And here we have originally fearing the burden. There's just way too many kids. We can't sustain this. And then, well, maybe there's a hopeful rebound. Maybe it'll rebound. Maybe it's going to rebound. Or more recently, in the last 2 years, what I hear is fearing the shortage. We are doomed. We're going down permanently, fearing the shortage. And that's a big difference politically between fearing the burden and fearing the shortage. But do people realize it? There's more. California is becoming age top heavy. Yes, we have falling birth rates and we have lower migration, and those reduce the number of young people in particular. They're the ones that are migration prone. And they also have babies, by the way, young people. Um, while older residents continue to largely age in place, and they say, what's changed? Nothing's changed. I'm still here. And in their perspective, it really isn't any different. That's happening to other people. It's not happening to me, they think. Um, Result is we face the threat of a top-heavy age balance in California. And I'm going to use one of my old graphs to show this. What does that top-heavy balance mean? There's not enough seniors with institutional knowledge, some people said. We need to have more seniors. Oh, yeah? Well, you don't have seniors. Uh, how does seniors suddenly get so popular? Well, what do you mean popular? Well, it's like night and day. Here's the growth, a 20-year growth from 1990 to 2010 by age group. Look at that. Those blue bars, excuse me a second, if I'm a little bit partisan. Those blue bars, those are my people. Look at them. We are booming. Boomers are booming. And we're in the prime ages for earnings and tax payments. And we might grumble about it a bit because we are getting, we are the big taxpayers. And you see there's a younger generation. It's still kids trailing along there. But you want to see the next 20 years? Oh, what happened to the good guys? Well, the good guys are still great, but now they're over age 65. The first boomer was born in 1946. You add 25 to that, you get, oh gosh. So in 2011, the first boomer showed up. There's 18 years of boomers after that. And the millennials are behind them there, dragging along. They're having a big impact, but it's not equal to what the boomers were doing. So it's a total, it's night and day. So how does that change everything? That hasn't changed anything. All that's happened is all our politicians are over 80. That's a California joke. Yeah, that's about so far. I'd like to have some millennial politicians, please, or Gen Xers, please. Okay, so too many, also there's a complaint, too many new graduates, not enough jobs. What do you mean not enough jobs? Not enough jobs. So why such low unemployment right now? And I wanted to break out my graph and show this. Alicia pulled this one up from Fred, that's the Federal Reserve Board. And, any unemployment rate under 6% is considered good. Unemployment under 6% is good. And any unemployment under 4%, unheard of. We got that here. It got below 4% twice, once before the pandemic and once after the pandemic. That is incredibly low. Anybody wants to talk about jobs? Well, explain this unemployment rate here. What the heck is going on? Well, California is an engine room generating jobs, yes. But the real reason is we can't find enough workers. Why not? Is that because they won't migrate here? Yeah, that's part of it. But the real thing is we have way too many of those boomers we just looked at who crossed age 65 and they're exiting the workforce. It's a big drain on the workforce. And so unemployment rate is really low because we just have a lot of vacancies we turned up. And you got to think about this. We need replacement workers. And I think, Mr. Bracken emphasized that pretty well, I think. And others of us have seen that too. So what about immigrants? Too many immigrants from abroad or from Iowa. At this rate, we'll all be immigrants soon or else we'll be Iowans. I do know the Iowa State song, but I won't sing it. Grandparents taught me. God. So, okay, so too many immigrants, yeah? We leveled off as 27% back before 2010. And it hasn't budged really since. It's just about 26.9% and holding steady. And so California, it's no issue here. It's so stable. Mostly, but what you don't recognize is that we have mostly a homegrown native-born population. If immigrants aren't growing, then what else is happening? Well, we're not getting migrants from Iowa, so then how do we have any people at all? Well, it's the homegrown revolution, and I've talked about that in my 12 minutes in previous years sometimes. It was a pretty big deal. We discovered it in my demographic shop. We didn't even know that we crossed that line in 2001, but it was not something anybody was tracking, the percent who were born in California. Always before, Californians were from somewhere else. Ever since the gold rush, we came from all over the world and all over the nation to California. And so we just never had a majority homegrown, but we got it starting in 2001. Now I'm going to show it to you by age group. And so you can see that, the big punchline here is without migration, California must be self-reliant upon our homegrown. All these trends aside, we only have these kids that are going to be our workers and taxpayers and future home seekers. So here's what it looks like. Foreign born is on top there. That's the share of the age group that is born abroad. You see the peak year, this is 2023 data. The peak age group is like 45 to 54 for immigrants. And when immigration tailed off, we stopped getting them in the younger age groups. And so what we have instead is we have a boatload of California born. Now that includes the children of immigrants, but those are all in California schools. We're paying for them now. And that's who we are working with. It doesn't matter, we'll take all the kids we can get because you saw a shortage. It's a desperate shortage. The other U.S. born, which includes people like me, I'm from Florida. I'm in that category there. It was bigger in earlier years. So those of us who are from other states are more often over 65. And then among the young people, there's very few kids. It's like 90% are California born. I'll show you 2 points in time. Here's 2000 on the left, and you see how it's changed. I tried to circle where all the changes were. The key thing is who's above 50%, and only the kids were above 50% homegrown back in 2000. Today, it's up to age 35 is homegrown. It's like over 60% are homegrown and growing. So those are our new workers, and there's lots of morals to the story. One is like, okay, so if we used to get really brilliant talent like me from other states, and whose intellect was grown at expense of other taxpayers in other states. That was a great deal. But if we have to grow our own, we have to pay for it. Well, and if we don't pay for it, what do we get? We'll come back to. I have a different twist than other people on that. We'll come back to it. We're going to get what we pay for. So it's really critical. Okay, so well, we really don't want any more children or young adults. We really, well, but it's shrinking our young adults makes California way too top heavy with a soaring senior ratio, which I'm going to show you right here. This is the people over 65 divided by those 25 to 64. And that ratio used to be 20 to people per 100 working age, per 20 people who are elderly per 100 working age. You see how it was constant from 1970 to 2010? That's the key point. People took it for granted, constant. Really low number of old people relative to working age. But this is for the US. I guess you want to see California. California is almost the same, although we started lower and we end up higher. So the difference is going to be more acute for us. But basically, the ratio of old people has doubled almost now. It's going to triple relative to working age. And that means the burden on young people is double the burden or triple. And so my conclusion is if we can't get more kids, what are we going to do? We're going to have to buff them up. We're going to have to make everybody able to lift more load. You can't neglect them. No dropouts allowed. Hands on deck. So that's a conclusion there. Once you realize that there's that ratio. So we can look at the Exodus a little more closely here. What is happening there? It's kind of all bad news. This is from 2006 to 2022. And you see how it's been like steady dropping. These are all negative net migration. This is terrible. But look what happened back in 2008. When you look at it in a longer picture, you realize in the boom time, before the Great Recession, we were losing a lot of people too. We had plenty of jobs here, no reason to leave here. Well, they were leaving here because I think housing prices were too high. And during the boom of prices, people leave. During the stagnant recovery, no one left. Prices were cheap. Everybody hunkered down. And then it started to accelerate later. And then the pandemic, it went hyper after that. But we should look at it separately by owners and renters. Let's look at renters on the left and owners on the right. So renters are pretty steady with the exception of the pandemic. All the action is net outmigration of owners. These people are owners after they leave, not necessarily before they leave. So I think that people are motivated to get out and find a place where they can buy a house and live the American dream. If you look at it by education, now you get a little different story. On the left side, we have renters, net migration by education. And you see the renters, that blue line there, that's the college graduates. And so California is a net importer of renters who have college degrees. I mean, that's amazing. I thought we educated all our own. No, we actually get extra people come here because of all the jobs in California. But after they get to be renters and they get a little bit older, they want to buy a house, then they go to the right panel over there and they go owners net out migration. And you see the homeowners, the college graduates are leaving just as fast as everybody else. So they come in young, joyful, hopeful, and they leave despondent, seeking greener pastures in someplace like Texas. By the way, Austin's closed up. It's closed down. It's taking no more people. All right, so this is what we've been talking about here. It's just comparing these two outlooks, old and new. And really the conclusion of this section of a talk is that livability for young adults and children is critical to retaining them in California because we really need these people for the future workforce. I mean, we need them, and there's no other way to get them. If they're leaving, we shouldn't let anybody leave. We should make it so attractive no one has to leave. So I want to put the social contract to work on our new problems. And let's just test one out, see how it works. And if you invent a new social contract, how would you make the narrative here? Let's pick something Well, here, I'm breaking it down into pieces here. I'm going to skip past this. I only got 5 minutes left. Okay, so I'll skip past all the details here, but like cooperation, for example, tight-fisted voters often seek benefits only for themselves, but expenditures for others could have reciprocal benefits. That interdependence is critical, that we remind people much more heavily than we do. And the self-interested people, we need to expand visions of self-interest to include interdependence with others. That we really are dependent on each other, and this exposes that. But let me go to here. Let's pick an easy problem. That's a joke line. Housing. Well, it may seem contradictory, but there are real advantages to approaching housing through the social contract. How's that? Well, because of this. And I tore this off the cover of the front page of the LA Times just a month ago. Just ripped it off there, and Alicia kind of pasted it on. You can sort of see our work there. This is the issues of greatest concern to California voters. And we have it for statewide, and we have Democrats and Republicans. And what do you see? I see there's a lot of agreement. There's a heck of a lot of agreement. That's why I take this as a very hopeful case. As difficult as it is, there is agreement on that. Now, you might disagree about other things like taxes or on climate change, but these are the three big ones, the three biggest ones. Wow, cost of living. Cost of living is all housing. Uh, okay, all right, so that's good news, I think. So what are we going to tell them about that? Well, we're going to give them along, skip these words here. But basically, how we really need to rely on our young people. We can't afford to lose anybody. Besides, we have a real top-heavy age ratio. Oh, it's killing us on Social Security and pension funds and Medicare, workforce shortage, taxpayer replacement crisis, and surprise, surprise, all those things are government activities. Government's going to give you my Social Security. Yes, they are. But only the private sector is going to buy your house. You are facing reality with demographics. Individual buyers, not the government, are going to buy your house. So, okay. So I got my house. I own it. I can sell it. Yeah. How many are you selling, and how many are there of them buying? Demographics has some clues. People never looked at, oh, by the way, it's this ratio right here. So if older people sell and younger people are the buyers, what was a nice handy ratio of only 20 sellers per 100 working age. Now it's 40 sellers or 60 sellers. That does not look favorable. I mean, I don't publicize this a lot because I don't want to create a stampede. I don't want to spark a run on the market. I deliberately sit on this. We're all friends here. I'm sharing it with you. That trend has not gotten any better. It's getting worse. Say, who is going to buy your house? And what can they really afford? No one's going to come from outside. There's hardly any migrants coming in here to buy a high-priced house. You're going to have to find some sucker who's California born and is staying here because their parents live here and their high school friends and they're rooted here and they're willing to pay. But what can they really afford? The gap between generations is just huge. It's a huge gap. And the people who have got the houses don't realize that. They're sitting there thinking, okay, I got mine. You have to work for yours too, Well, the Sacramento Bee I did an op-ed on this theme a decade ago, and the Sac Bee did a great political illustration on the Sunday opinion page. I think I've got it here. Yeah, the older folks really need young people to succeed, but I can say that, but how do you show it? Imagine the American dream. It's a lofty goal up in the sky. Imagine a whole subdivision of American dream up in the sky. And where are all the buyers? They're trying to climb the ladders and get there. But they're just not making it. The gap is too big. Okay, everybody, we're going to have to lower down the dream. We have to lower that. Those houses are up there too high. Excuse me, we're crank them down. How far you got to go? Not yet. Keep crank them down. Okay, that's basically the old folks need the young folks to succeed. They're not separate interests. Every buyer needs to sell it. Every seller needs a buyer. So it's a partnership, actually, and we don't treat it that way. So more educated children, like it happens to be, these are data I happen to find in the ACS, more educated children make better future home buyers. These are people aged 35, 44. This is for, I think in California, you can't actually buy a house at age 25, but we won't count it that way. We'll do 35. That's fair, right? And so, but it makes a difference how much education you have. And the ones that, the golden ones have a BA degree or higher, and they can pay a lot more. So who do you want to have come knocking on your door? Is it the kid that you invested in, or the kid that, no, you couldn't afford it? Who's going to come knocking on your door? So I think we really need to, this is just, I'm using education, it could be broader sets of investments in kids. But this is like the most central one. And it really, it's in the interest of seniors to, really move up the education levels. Here is home ownership rates by race, just to show you based on education. This education effect occurs in every racial group. There may be differences between whites and blacks, but look at the uplift in blacks when there's a college degree. I mean, wow, you get talk about return on investment. That's pretty good. That's a big uptick, more than you get with whites. Uh, every group though, it has this uptick, and so there's a real payoff right across the board. I don't talk about race at all in my talks. Race isn't the issue. It's how many young people you got, and we need all the young people we can get. So what's the score on the home seller crisis? I won't go through the score, but basically it's bad. Every one of these points is bad. And so we really strengthening the bottom line, strengthening the economic productivity of our young adults seems imperative, because not many from out of state are coming to rescue us. So I got 2 slides left. So here is the intergenerational social contract that we need for a strong future. It's pretty simple. We need to invest in other people's kids. And we really need to keep all our young adults. And so life cycle sharing is California's present and future. All will benefit. So let's fortify that cycle of roles the way it works. All of us can help taking turns as we rotate roles so that all Californians will win. Yes, there's differences in the present, but pretty soon you're all going to be elderly too. And you want to have your share when you get there. And those kids in school are going to be buyers for your home. So I'm going to leave you with this slide. This just no text on it other than it's just a diagram. That's my diagram, and I think it applies to everybody. And see if you can make it work for you. And if you want more information, there is a QR code there. So thank you very much, everybody.
Want to thank Dr. Myers for that. But are there any questions? Raise your hand if you have any questions for Dr. Myers. Gretchen.
Uh-oh.
So, reading an article once about European social safety nets, the author said, "You Americans think that we love our big social safety nets because we love each other. That's not it. We want our stuff. We want to get the thing from the social safety net." So the United States has a much lower sort of base level of exchange than those countries. But how do we sort of communicate to people what they're going to get? I mean, should we be sending reports home as like, this is how much the state spent to educate your kid in 4th grade? This is how much Medicare spent on your hip replacement. This is how much, I mean, Social Security sends these reports home uh, to say, here's what your trajectory is to get. And I think that's part of why everybody's like, this is great. We should keep this. But can we do more of that? Is there some potential to stop having so many of these? I don't want to pay for that if it's more salient what you're going to get.
That's such a wonderful question that it provides its own answer. Now you've articulated that's a good takeaway message right there. But there is a downside too. I mean, you don't want to make it. The more you detail it, the more people will say, "Well, I don't need a hip replacement. Can I get a discount?" The idea of an insurance pool is we all pay into it, regardless of our risk factors, and that's how we make it affordable. Otherwise, some people would have have really light insurance. So that's why we require young adults who are healthy to get insurance. We need them in the risk pool. So I don't know. Detailing it too much might actually create more divisions and fissures. So my instinct is to go at it indirectly and say, well, people can calculate all they want. I'll just tell you this, look at these ratios here, number of old people, number of young people, and you do the math. You figure this out. What do you think is going to work better? And leave it more open-ended, but where you can come to a logical conclusion without too much precision. And so if a government sends out a report, then people will think that's a contract. Okay, so you're guaranteeing you're going to give me that money. Well, it's not really guaranteed. We don't know what recession might happen in the meantime, and so government doesn't want to do that. They don't want to be exposed with any commitments and let people down. So I can see that, but your question is the right question, I think, and we should ways of just balancing so we're not just giving one side of the story. Like here's your pension. I love getting Social Security now. I don't even have to work for it. It's amazing. Even in summer when I'm not teaching, I get no salary. I get a check. It's great. All right. So people do like that, but they have to make them, and they think they earned it. Well, actually, they're getting a lot more than they actually paid into the system. So we know that, but I don't know how far to detail it. You could obviously poke holes in it from either side. So I wouldn't go too far, but we need to remind people that there are benefits and not detail too much, and remind them that there are costs. And then the question is, who should be paying the most? And the people who are most grumpy are about 50-year-old men. And, well, they are paying the most, and they're not getting anything for it. That's why I think, well, but don't worry, we're going to rotate roles. And pretty soon you're going to be getting your big one too, but they're judging it today. They want to have lower taxes today, but they're not thinking, are you going to get older? Are you going to stay age 50 your whole life?
Mayor Flores.
Thank you, Professor Dowell. I had a question regarding the responsibility of government regarding to the facilitating of like end of life cycles when it comes to housing and mismatch of housing for folks that are seniors, that are empty nesters, that have a housing that's 4 or 5 bedrooms, and folks that are younger entering the housing market. I would say that, or trying to, I would say, household build. What's the responsibility of government at that point? Because I know that there's some folks that they, for whatever reason, like they don't want to sell, or they're just like, we're just gonna stay here and have all these 5 empty bedrooms. And there is no incentive because obviously these properties are not being, reevaluated, so they're able to sustain it. But what role do we have as government to help facilitate that in a systematic way that allows for the matching of appropriate housing?
Yeah, well, there's multiple answers, layers to the answer. First layer is that housing is treated as a private market good, by and large, and so the developers are in charge of that, and they get a profit for that. And landlords, they get a profit for providing housing, and you pay them the cash for that, and so it's treated as separate. However, in the end, government does hold the bag. Government has mortgage insurance. Government, backstops any big calamity. So government does have a responsibility, and government has a bunch of, our politicians have a bunch of constituents who don't distinguish that clearly between whose responsibility it is. Okay, so having said all that, there's not a lot you can do to get people out of their house. And so I've taken a proactive stance. I say my current article just submitted for publication, hopefully 3 days ago, with Sung Moon Cho. He submitted it, actually. You got it in, right? It's in. The American Planning Association. And we said emphatically, people have a right to stay in their houses as long as they wish. We said it emphatically. And of course, that means that their houses are going to be occupied without any workers there. But meanwhile, we have these workers looking for housing. So of course, we're going to need to build more housing to provide places for the new workers. But you stay as long as you want. And we're sort of addressing that message to older voters who do want to stay, but they don't think they need to vote for more housing. So more housing entitlements would be a way to have it both ways. You stay in your house as long as you want, and then we're going to build new. But another strategy, though, which was not in the article, another strategy is, I call it the Shangri-La strategy. You dream up some kind of senior housing. It is so incredible that these people in these old houses, these big old houses, can't stay away. They want to be there because they have such great fun, because they're going to have exercise classes every day and all these amenities. But to get in there, you said 2 minutes before. Oh, it's just Q&A. Yeah, okay. But train of thought. Oh yeah, but to get into this Shangri-La, you have to work with the housing authority, who's going to find a really good large family that can occupy that unit. And so, and I'm not sure how actually the legalities on that, because it is but that would be the idea. So you recycle the housing but you attract them to a better offer, which is smaller, and they can afford it. And then well, you get the point.
We'll take one more.
Laguna Woods, I gotta go there.
We'll take one more question and a quick response from Penny. Yes.
Oh, Penny, yeah.
Well, there's this phenomena of corporate buying of single-family homes. I mean, it may be that they can build that ladder to the homes rather than market that actually needs it. Could you relate to that?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but I know the topic. Corporate home buyers. It started after the Great Recession.
Could
Real
the
estate
market provide the
investment
capacity
trusts
to
who buy up tracts
Well,
of thousands of homes.
They're going for maximum profits. It's an investment,
Right.
and they don't want to diminish their profits at all. They want to go maximum profits, and scarcity it actually is their friend, because the more scarce the supply is, the more their prices go up, the more their investment goes up. It's a Wall Street thing. Whether government can intervene in that at all is unclear, and the logistics are really difficult. But so you have to think of some market only solution. So they're buying we don't know who they're buying them from actually. They're originally in the Great Recession. After the recession, there were foreclosures and other houses that were unwanted, but they've carried it over, that practice, into the period of the market when there's lots of demand, and we could use those houses. It's a topic to be. Somebody should run for office on that. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you, Dowell, again for not only the keynote, but also your years of service to this topic and to our community in enlightening us. At least my takeaway, one of my takeaways is livability for our young people is crucial, and also that this intergenerational social contract requires us to invest in others, and that is something that I think maybe is not as obvious as maybe some of us think it is, because I like that cycle. We're all going to be in one of those boxes at different times in our lives, and so making sure that we paid forward or backwards is essential for our well-being. So it's really about the WIFM. It's what's in it for me, that we that this is about, and being able to find that WIFM in the social contract, I think begins to enlighten our way forward as we think of policy, as we think of building sustainable and equitable communities into the future. So again, thank you, Dr. Myers, for those insights. Well, I hope that you all have learned something today, and that you have enough to fill your thinking bags, and you have options to chew on and hopefully bring to the fore in terms of trying to solve for the future of our of our communities. I'm supposed to advance slides here? No. Okay. If you haven't already seen the SCAG analysis on the latest American Community Survey data, I would encourage you to do so. There are many points that were discussed today that you will find more granular information in that analysis, and hopefully you will find other things on our website that connects you to the work that we do at SCAG. We also would like to know what your thoughts are about the event today. I think there's a survey. There it is. QR code. I love QR codes because you all have phones, so you can't say you don't have it. It's right there. um, it's also in the back of the program. So we like feedback. One of our mantras around here is feedback is a gift. So do us well and give us that gift of feedback by going through the survey. We appreciate you all joining us. It's always a pleasure and a privilege for me. This is one of my favorite events because we are talking data. Data is it's agnostic. It's just what it is, right? And so you can argue all you want about philosophy and subjective things, but when it comes to data, it's really just that. And I really appreciate it when folks like Walter and Beth and the rest of them come up here and talk about the trends that we see in data, because then it opens our eyes to what the future holds for us. And really, again, I appreciate you all being here. And I want to thank again the USC Prize Soul Prize School of Public Policy, still the #2 in the country. #3 now. Okay, used to be #2. I don't know what happened. We want to thank you all, our sponsors, our partners from finance, DOF and Census, and there's an unsung hero here that most of you don't know, the one who's been keeping time to make sure we get out of here on time, Amanda. She's been so subtle about it, but she's kept everybody on time, and it's always fun to see things work out the way we plan it. So again, have a good evening, have a good day, and see you all around. Thank you.